G'day guys and gal, the death of Sanguinius was one of the most destined, tragic, but important parts of 40k lore. Sanguinius was the hero of heroes, literally flawless as a protagonist, and the brother that all others looked up to. Some may even say that the death of Sanguinius was the death of the Imperium's noble spirit. Now I believe his death was great for the story and its grimdark tone, as well as giving Horus the win he needed going into his fight with the Emperor. But a lot of fans do like to dream of an Imperium in which the Angel survived the Heresy and was a part of the Scouring and even beyond. A dream that I want to dive into today to see what actually would have happened if the glorious Hawkboy didn't get curb stomped by his big, mean, bold brother. Before we get started, good news guys and gal, as we're bringing back the Fallen Angel of Blood. This was a special launch some time ago where we looked into the what if of Sanguinius falling into the trap on Cygnus Prime. Not becoming a demon per se, but a corrupted angel. This is easily one of the best sculpts of the entire range, and the detail is nuts. The fact that you can paint the individual teeth is a testament to both the sculpt and how much money we spent on our machines. These are some of the paint jobs we've received with this boy, and golly gosh, sexy as hell. The Fallen Angel is returning as a permanent part of the range. Whew! However, if demand is high enough, which it probably will be, it can slow things down a bit. So if you want him, the sooner you get in, the sooner you get him. Why not bundle a few other minis while you're in there to qualify for free worldwide shipping? We have also sent out April's War Chest. The War Chest is a mystery bundle of minis with the value of the box being way higher than if you just got the minis separately. There was a big E in the last month's War Chest, with May's War Chest now available to buy. I won't say what's in it, however I will say that the War Chest is only like $90 USD and May's box contains over $200 worth of minis, so you're getting over double the value, and trust me, you'll be very happy with the contents. So pick up the Fallen Angel or pick up May's War Chest, or both. Link is below. Today we'll go over the what if of Sanguinius surviving the Heresy and how that would impact the setting. Let's get into it. So to give some context on what a Sanguinius survival would look like, there's two potential options here. Firstly is that when Horus and Sanguinius were fighting, Horus was on a timeline. He basically put the Emperor at the opposite end of the vengeful spirit and threw most of the might of chaos at him to slow him down. The Big E fought gigantic demons, an entire army of wordbearers, and even his own puppeteered custodes, whereas Sanguinius only had to fight through some Sons of Horus warriors. Horus wanted time to try turn Sanguinius to chaos, and when time ran out, he brutally and rapidly killed his brother. However, let's say in this instance, the Emperor was too fast and actually beat Sanguinius to reach Horus, or maybe Horus got caught monologuing, that silly dog, so the Emperor arrived before Horus managed to kill Sanguinius. In this case, Sanguinius would kind of become like one of the entourage of companions the Emperor had with him. No match for the borderline god Horus, but helping in their own small way. Most of these companions would survive the fight, so either Sanguinius never makes it to the showdown, or he does but survives. We want to keep the rest similar. The Emperor beats Horus but takes a beating and needs to be put on the throne. The end of the Heresy plays out the same. Guilliman arrives and begins anal fucking the traitors to death. Dawn, Valdor, and now Sanguinius rush the Emperor to the Golden Throne. The Imperium is shooketh. Now post-Heresy, the Imperium was actually experiencing a lot of inner conflict. Guilliman was the most powerful Primarch by far in terms of resources and was spearheading the rebuilding effort. He low-key was taking control of the Imperium, coming into direct conflict with Rogel Dawn. See, many didn't trust Guilliman's intentions, seeing him as an opportunist. Guilliman had good intentions, but he also saw his other brothers as broken, traumatized things that were not thinking clearly, thus could not be trusted to make decisions. There was no like bad guy and good guy here, however there was a lot of mistrust. Now the Lion generally would be looked at as the big brother that could be made the new regent, but the Lion had missed the Siege of Terror and many were mad at him as he went on a bit of a joyride, blowing up traitor homeworlds, so he wasn't exactly everyone's favorite knight at the time. Sanguinius' legion, the Blood Angels, were experiencing hectic PTSD from the black rage they experienced during the siege, when Sanguinius was slain. Thus they were a shadow of a legion themselves. If Sanguinius was there, it would fix basically all of these initial problems. He was the legendary defender of Terra, holder of the Eternity Gate, slayer of Angron. He was the Primarch who was the closest to the Emperor, literally when he fell, and he was already seen by many as the Emperor's successor. Sanguinius at this point was also a lot more locked in and less doubtful, which is part of the reason why he became so powerful. During Imperium Secundus, he was like Jon Snow. I don't want it. He was very reluctant, mostly because he was humble, but also because he was super insecure about the gene flaws within the Blood Angels, something he had accepted and embraced by the siege. Now an interesting note, the death of Sanguinius triggered the Black Rage in the Blood Angels, who proceeded to slaughter a fuckton of traitors. It's actually a big part of why the Loyalists were able to hold on for so long, and likely is why so many of them are still alive. However, to keep things straightforward, let's just say even without the Black Rage triggering, they still managed to hold, their bravery and skill matching the ferocity they would have had from the Black Rage. This also means that the Blood Angels don't end up as these fatalistic, traumatized warriors. It's specifically stated in canon that at the start of the Scouring, the Blood Angels were fucking shit, slow to take objectives, high casualties, they had lost their fighting spirit. With Sanguinius amongst them, they would be unstoppable, all of them veterans of the Siege of Terra, as well as the battle on the Vengeful Spirit. They also would be able to rapidly rebuild their legion, as Primarchs make it super easy to make new gene seed. With Sanguinius being the de facto ruler, shit would be way smoother, especially since the dude can literally see the future. Guilliman wanted to rebuild and retake the Sol System before striking out. Rogel wanted to ditch the Sol System and strike out and hunt the traitors while they were reeling. The correct course was to stay and rebuild the Sol System and retake the Imperium slowly. Chaos wanted the Loyalists to chase the traitors, giving into the vengeance and hatred, which would empower it and help it rebuild itself faster, as the Emperor really fucked up the Chaos Gods when he killed Horus and basically knocked them out. Sanguinius would more than likely choose to rebuild and reclaim, as his foresight would help guide his decision, and despite his capacity to feel rage, he was very level-headed, at least in terms of decisions that didn't involve suiciding himself via 1v1ing Horus. Another issue the Loyalists faced is that because of the delicate political situation, when they went to retake Luna from the Sons of Horus, which was the Imperium's main priority as Luna contained the Black Ships, which were essential for finding Psykers and bringing them to the Emperor to eat, no Loyalist Primarchs actually got involved, as none of them wanted to leave Terra to join the battle, as it meant their brothers could scheme and plot behind their backs. This resulted in a fuckton of Loyalist Marines dying, as Luna was a death trap. If instead they were united and trusted each other under the banner of Sanguinius and were able to land with their legions, their presence, power and tactical ability would blitz the fuck out of the traitors, causing way less casualties for the Loyalists and taking Luna faster. Thus Mars would also be available for taking sooner as well. Now this doesn't actually change the initial plot much. Sanguinius isn't a wizard. Him being around wouldn't revive the Emperor. Likewise, the Loyalists chose correct without Sanguinius. However, the Siege of Luna, despite being a victory, was also a bit of a disaster that Sanguinius would have avoided. Now after the Sol System reconquest, it does get a little bit more unclear what would happen next. However, there was a big theme of helplessness and need for redemption amongst the Primarchs. Lehman and Corvus both literally fucked off into hell on some random redemption quest. The Lion gets cucked at Caliban, Rogel loses most of his legion during the events of the Iron Cage, Jagadai runs off to do blow and jetbike race with Dark Eldar. With Sanguinius around, things likely would look very different for two reasons. Reason one, his foresight would help the Loyalists avoid the more stupid mistakes. Perhaps the Lion is ready for the ambush at Caliban and doesn't end up in a coma. Perhaps Rogel is more chill and doesn't bum rush the Iron Cage. Instead, he attacks it alongside the Ultramarines and the Blood Angels and actually manages to capture Perturabo. However, Sanguinius also may know that certain events would need to play out as they were. For example, Guilliman getting wounded by Fulgrim and the Lion getting wounded by Luther meant both were ready to re-emerge in the current setting where they're most needed. So perhaps Sanguinius, much to his own sadness, smiles at his brothers as they depart for their final missions, with them not knowing they're about to face their doom. Maybe the Lion isn't warned about Caliban, nor Guilliman about Fulgrim. I do believe Sanguinius would try to avoid the Iron Cage, keeping the Imperial Fist strong, Dawn from having a huge crash out, and even capturing Perturabo, which would be nuts. Worst case, they'd execute him. However, out of all the traitors at this point, he was probably the only one that could be saved on account of him not being a demon. Now this is still Warhammer, and as we know, Sanguinius' foresight isn't flawless, nor is his decision making. Loyalist Primarchs would still disappear one by one. The Imperial cult would still infect the Imperial truth, maybe even faster since the Imperium was now led by a fucking angel. As soon as the Emperor's Webway project failed, mankind was set on a direct path to the Come Zone. However, Sanguinius would be able to steer them clear of the worst dangers and mistakes early on. I do believe eventually Sanguinius himself would go missing, either unable to handle the stress of ruling mankind for thousands of years, or perhaps seeking something to bring back the Emperor, or even slain in a legendary battle. 10,000 years is a very long time, even for an immortal. However, those 10,000 years would look quite different. Mankind would be stronger, the traitors would be weaker. When the 40k setting kicks off, it was at the tail end of something called the Time of Waning, where the Imperium was worn out, broke, divided, and ripe to get clapped by Xenos and various Xeno factions. It was this weakness that allowed Abaddon to rip through Cadia, and it was literally only Guilliman's return that saved the Imperium. Perhaps with Sanguinius surviving, the Imperium would have held a lot more firm and been more resilient. Imagine a Guilliman awakening to a galaxy untroubled by the Great Rift. That would be something. Likewise, Sanguinius would also potentially be available to return in the current setting as well, once again taking up the mantle of the Master of Mankind and leading his people against the Tyranids, the Necrons, and the re-emergent chaotic threat. Regardless of Sanguinius surviving would be the pivot point on which humanity finally claimed victory, or simply the dying fire of humanity flaring up one last time, it would be a treat to see. However, Sanguinius' death and sacrifice is one of the hardest hitting parts of 40k lore, and I wouldn't change it for the world. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up the Fallen Angel of Blood and grab the May War Chest, you won't regret it. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more angelic content. Join the squad for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.